Hey, storytellers and readers. Welcome to another episode of I'll Read That, the show where your stories get heard. Whether you're an unpublished author, self published independent, or just someone with a story to tell, this is your space to shine. In each episode, I'll read your submitted story aloud, giving it a voice, a platform, and most importantly, a chance to grow. You'll get feedback from fellow writers, readers, and creatives to help you sharpen your craft and take your storytelling to the next level. So if you've been waiting for someone to say, I'll read that, you found your place. Submit your story, your novel, your poem, get heard, and let's grow together. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have something worth sharing, well, you already know. So back to Thassodar Jax, Galactic Ranger by David Jace. His information can be found in the description below. We are now in part 7, chapter 6, chapter 6, section 19. Species log. Human Jax Earth, 2010-11. Regarding domiciles, humans are largely private and territorial. They live in enclosed structures with doors as soon as developmentally able, and locks, once that culture has developed such things. The structures are of great number of styles, with different names based upon the architecture: huts, cabins, houses, castles, mansions, apartments, etc. These residences, in addition to sleeping quarters, contain the vast majority of personal items considered to belong to that individual. Their clothing, their tools, cooking equipment, and entertainment all can be found in a human's domicile. Entering another human's domicile and taking something is considered a severe social error, worthy of formal social retribution. There are groups of humans tasked to handle such incidents. Within a domicile may live a single individual, a small group of associated individuals, a human family unit, or, sometimes, larger groups of unrelated individuals, organized as a team or purposeful unit. The family unit of a domicile usually includes a pair of domestic partners. In rare cases, humans partner in greater numbers than two, but the duo partnership is the standard configuration. The parentage and offspring, second generation parentage, or even adult siblings. They generally divide the domicile into smaller spaces based on specific purposes or activities, such as sleeping, cooking, eating. Cooking and eating are separate activities for humans, and entertainment slash socialization. Part 20, or Section 20. She looked out the window and watched the streetlights slide by as they glided down the back streets behind the theater. The glare made it impossible to see the stars. Then she turned her attention back to the inside of the car, to the driver. He had put his glove back on and looked normal, but he wasn't. He was an alien. She was in the car with an alien. She rolled her shoulders back and tried not to freak out, now that she was already committed. So she broke the silence. What's your name? Geez, I sound like I'm in a bar. Thassodar. He glanced over and seemed to relax slightly. What are you called? Valentina. She looked over at him and noticed the hint of an orange reflection in his eyes when oncoming headlights passed by. What are you? I'm a level 3 Galactic Ranger assigned to Subspace Species Sanctuary, and that's more information than you're supposed to have, so I'm going to need to trust you to keep all of this to yourself. He looked her in the eyes. Can I trust you? I won't talk, she answered, but can I trust you? I just told you that I'm a. He broke off and took a deep breath, then blew it out. My job is to protect your species. I won't hurt you. She didn't know why he would be frustrated with her. She was the normal one. Okay, but what are you? I mean, you're not human, you're an alien, right? Oh, well, yes. Do all aliens look like you? I mean, blue skin and stuff? Is that a mask? Your face, I mean? She fidgeted with her hands, but craned her neck closer, peering at his dark brown skin. I cover my face in what you would call brown makeup. My natural skin is cobalt blue. And no, not all aliens look like me. Do you think all humans look like you? Can you not tell others of your species apart? Or do they all look the same? Further, on this single planet, there are hundreds of different animal species with quite unique traits. The same is even more true across the galaxy. Many species with a wide variety of physical traits and forms. Some you would hardly even recognize as a person with your limited experience. My limited experience? Are you calling me stupid? She leaned back against the door away from him, with a challenging look on her face. How many planets have you been to? One. She had barely even been out of Texas. She had gone to Mexico once with her family. And how many aliens of that planet have you met? One now. 10 points for Valentina. You have limited experience. She blinked suddenly, realizing that maybe she didn't win that particular point in the conversation. She rolled her eyes. So who do you think took Jessica and all those other people? 4 escaped criminals. Their leader is a Vidarian named Grote. So we just have to find these guys, tell the police, and save Jessica. We don't involve local police. Subspace species can have extraplanetary knowledge. You're not supposed to have extraplanetary knowledge either. So what is the plan then? Find the criminals, save the humans. Valentina nodded and looked out the window again into the darkness. The street lights were more spaced out here. She didn't recognize the road. Do you abduct people? No. Removing sentient life forms from their natural habitat is illegal. What about the other night at the club? Valentina smirked. That's not abduction. That's... Thassodar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That's fitting in. You asked too many questions. She crossed her arms and mentally gave herself 10 more points. She was pretty sure she'd won that part of the conversation. They drove on, and the streetlights faded behind them. They pulled off the road in front of a pair of large metal gates. As the car approached, the gates swung wide open. Pretty high-class alien, she said under her breath. She watched in the side mirror as the gates swung closed behind them. Trees surrounded the driveway, and when they turned to bend, she lost sight of the gate in the rear view. She wasn't sure if she was impressed or anxious. Where were they going? They turned another bend, and a contemporary house came into view. The driveway went to one side, where a large double-door garage connected to the side of the main house. The garage doors, too, swung wide open as they pulled up to it, and Thassodar pulled inside and parked it beside a black Jeep. On the other side of the garage sat a motorcycle. Her family's garage was full of boxes and old junk. This garage was clean and held only the vehicles. As they got out of the car, the garage doors whispered close again. She was decided to be impressed. This way, Thassodar said. She followed him through the side door at the back of the garage that led into a short hallway. They passed 3 doors on the right-hand side of the hall, 2 of which were clear windows into stark, empty rooms. The rest of the doors in the hall were solid and gave no clue what lay behind them. At the end of the hall was the living room, and Valentina stopped at the entrance to take it in. The living room was blue, every shade of blue, all of it. The floor was a thick, dark blue carpet. The walls were painted light blue. The furniture was some shade of blue in between. There was even a plant in one corner with blue leaves, though admittedly it had an orange bark to the trunk. So you like blue, huh? Yes. Do you have a problem with blue? He sounded defensive. Nope. No problem with blue. It's nice. Thank you. He sat on the blue couch in front of the laptop on the blue stone table. She wondered where would even find blue stone. It was pretty, streaked with a silvery accent. She wandered over to the fireplace and reached up to lift the lid of the box on the mantel. Don't touch anything. I'm not. Her hand snapped back to her side. Don't touch anything, she mouthed to herself in a mocking copy. Thassodar picked up the laptop and swiped across the screen with his fingertips. With each gesture, the windows on the screen flew into the air and expanded, hanging in midair like 2-dimensional televisions. Whoa, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Valentina dropped into the larger, overstuffed chair by the fire. Thassodar ignored her. She rolled her eyes. Some screens were local news broadcasts, others looked like documents. She couldn't read them from where she was, sitting. He set down the laptop and focused on the floating screens, moving from one to another and back. Valentina grew bored. Her stomach growled. Do you eat? Thassodar barely glanced back at her, still focused on the screen. Do I what? Do you eat? She said more loudly. You know, food? Of course I eat. He continued to read the reports and watch the news. So do I. Do you have food here? What? I'm hungry. She planted her feet on the floor and stood up. Do you have food I can eat? In the kitchen. He waved to one side of the living room where a large archway opened to another room up a short set of stairs. Valentina wandered up the couple of steps to the raised area for the kitchen. She opened the first cabinet and found plates. The next one held glasses. Normal so far, she mumbled. The next cabinet was almost completely empty except for a box of strawberry Pop-Tarts. Seriously? The blue alien eats Pop-Tarts? She called out. Please be quiet. I'm trying to focus. He snapped back. Sorry, she muttered and opened the next cabinet. This one had boxes of packages with strange markings that she couldn't read. She picked up one of the dusky green colored packages. The material felt like a rough paper but stronger. It was sealed and didn't smell like anything. I'm not even sure this is supposed to be food. She put the package back and opened the refrigerator. She found a few drinks, a couple of odd condiments, but nothing that made a meal, at least to her eye. What do you eat? She called again. Air? Thassodar stomped up into the kitchen, his mouth set in a straight line. He went over to what looked like a high-tech microwave and pressed his thumb to the metal plate. The door swung open and a computerized voice spoke. Please place your order. Here, Thassodar gestured. Have whatever you like. Just leave me alone so I can focus. He grumped back to the floating digital reports, still finding nothing. Valentina stuck her tongue out at his back and turned curiously to the microwave. Well, what do you have? There are thousands of recipes from 126 worlds currently programmed. Please narrow the parameters. No way. Valentina whistled under her breath. Do you have Chinese food? Chinese Earth regional cuisine. Please specify dish. Beef chow mein, Valentina asked uncertainly. The door to the microwave whispered closed and a yellow light came on inside. She could hear whirring and buzzing sounds more from the device, but couldn't see what was happening. Inside the translucent door, a moment later, a little bell rang and the door opened again. Steam poured out, and Valentina leaned down to see better. Scattered across the floor of the machine was hot beef chow mein, sauce splattered, sauce splattered everywhere. Oops, she whispered, and glanced into the living room. He was focused on his reports. She opened the first cabinet again and got a plate. It only took a couple of drawers for her to find a fork. She scraped the food onto the plate and set the plate on the counter. There were paper towels beside the sink and she cleaned up the best she could. Now I know, she told herself and grabbed a soda from the fridge. She carried the plate of food to the living room and settled on one end of the couch. She tasted the first bite. This is really good, she said aloud. He did not respond. She shrugged and continued to eat. She wondered what secret alien gadgets were hiding around the house. Thassodar kicked the table, grunting something that did not sound like English, but she still recognized the frustrating tone. There's nothing here. No clue, no sign. I do not know how they got here, where they're hiding, or what they're up to. He stepped back from the screens, and Valentina stayed wisely quiet this time. I need a break. I'll be back in a minute. He strode off down the hallway, leaving her alone with all the floating screens. Valentina set the food on the coffee table and stood up to look at the digital reports. Experimentally, she put a finger against the words, and it went right through. The report wavered slightly, but otherwise was unaffected. Cool. She read news reports about the theater incident. Motion caught her attention out of the corner of her eye. Another digital screen was a recording. No, a series of recordings, playing over and over. She turned to look closer. It was inside the theater. Crowds of people following a couple of guys, one short and mean looking, and the other tall and handsome, in an older sort of way. They must be two of the criminals, Thassodar had mentioned. It switched to a different camera, and she watched the same event happen with a different crowd of people. She looked closer and noticed that many of them were carrying half-full buckets of popcorn. They must have been they must have been in the middle of the movie. Why would the entire audience just leave? The video switched to the parking lot. The big white truck pulled up, the doors open. She gasped as Grote closed the doors using 4 hands and watched them drive away. She leaned in, looking for the license plate, but saw that it was blank. Then something else caught her eye. What are you doing? Thassodar asked from behind her, startling her. Nothing. She recovered herself and brushed a lock of hair behind her ear. I mean, I'm helping. Right, there's nothing there. Actually, I think I found something. She pointed at the video, which was back inside the theater. Can you take this back to the truck behind the theater? Thassodar smirked condescendingly at her for a moment, then shrugged and reached forward to touch the screen. The video jumped to the truck part. There's no license plate, if that's what you're looking for. Sorry, that was him. There's no license plate, if that's what you're looking for. No, I saw that. But when it drives away, there's something else. She waited for the right moment. Here, pause it. He touched the screen again and the image stopped moving. Can you zoom in? The white truck filled the screen. No, not the truck, behind the truck. The building's on the other side of the road there. She reached up and dragged her finger across the image like she was using her phone, and it shifted to the section she wanted. See the big shop windows? They reflected the other side of the truck. There's a logo on the side. Thassodar leaned in to look closer. You're right. 10 points for Valentina, she thought to herself. She crossed her arms, grinned, and turned around. A blue monster leaned close to her, orange eyes staring at her from a deep blue face. She screamed. Thassodor's orange eyes widened and he jerked backwards from the scream. He tripped over the blue stone table and sat down hard right on her half-finished plate of chow mein. What is it? He demanded of her. Sorry, your face. I mean, the blue skin. I wasn't expecting it. Sorry. She shook his. He shook his head and stood up, picking up chow mein off his slacks. Ew. She wrinkled her nose. Sorry about that. It's fine. He looked again at the logo. It is small, backwards, distorted from the window angles, and pixelated due to the primitive nature of the recording. But it is there. Finally, a real lead. I can have the computer trying to clean it up and run it through a photo recognition, but it's probably going to take a while to find a match. And that doesn't guarantee it'll give us a location. But it's something. He turned to Valentina. Thank you. I also noticed that the people had buckets of popcorn. It looks like they were in the middle of the movie. Why would they walk out of the middle of the movie to follow those guys? Do they have mind control powers? Are they pod people? Are they what? No, don't be ridiculous. I'm playing Scooby-Doo with a blue-skinned alien after eating food that his microwave made out of thin air. You asked me to not be ridiculous? Hermes is a con artist. They probably interrupted the movie and told them they'd won a prize or something. That's a minor mystery, and there's no such thing as a group mind control or pod people. Hermes? He named himself after the Greek god, poser. Thassodar looked down at her. Hermes was arrested along with his family for invading and abusing an undeveloped species on this planet several thousand revolutions ago. The species lives a very long time. That is your Greek god. Valentina stared at the frozen image of Hermes on the screen. Well, that's not intimidating. What I can't figure out is how they got on planet. There's no unaccounted for ships. What do you mean, unaccounted for ships? Thassodar pointed at a floating report. This is the list of every ship that has entered or exited Earth's atmosphere in the last week. They only escaped prison a couple of days ago. He pointed to the report right beside it. These are all the visitation logs for the same period. They match. Every ship is accounted for. So how did they get from Jupiter to Earth? And no, they didn't surf across the solar system. Valentina stuck her tongue out at him and looked at the two reports. You said every ship is accounted for. Why is this report longer than the visitor log? Thassodar looked where she was pointing. Oh, by one ship. That's the ambassador's ship. I'm still waiting on their paperwork. Well, they had to get here somehow. If they didn't have their own ship, Valentina shrugged. They must have hitched a ride on someone else's. Thassodar blinked, looked closer at the minor discrepancy. Hitched a ride. No one knows how they escaped, and species diplomats don't legally have to disclose their crew. Vanessa, I think you found it. Valentina, and you're welcome. Lomax warned me not to trust him. Thassodar swiped all the documents back down into the laptop and headed for the door beside the kitchen. He glanced back at Valentina. Are you coming or not? Section 21. Through the door was a white room with counters and cabinets lining the walls. A wide white table in the center. High-tech, literally out-of-this-world equipment laid across the walls and counters. Touch nothing, he warned. Do I get a ray gun? She asked, looking around. No. Thassodar pulled open a drawer and started going through it for certain items. Valentina picked up a couple of small discs on the table beside her. How about a lightsaber? This isn't the movies, Valentina, and you aren't getting anything from in here. Far too dangerous for your untrained hands. Besides, you're human. She flipped one disc over and saw two buttons. What are these? Thassodar turned around and sighed. I said touch nothing. Those are mobile trackers. They stick to metal and broadcast a signal. He turned back to the drawer. I know it's in here somewhere. Valentina made sure he wasn't looking and slipped two of the discs into her pocket. She replaced the rest and picked up what looked like a pistol. Is this a ray gun? Thassodar turned quickly. He shook his head. No, that's a bio-tracker. It injects a being with a tracker, though they are similar to the larger ones. Now put it down and stop touching things. Valentina shrugged and mimicked him behind his back. Stop touching things. In the middle of her impression, she accidentally fingered the trigger mechanism for the injector. It fired directly at Thassodar. Ow! He spun around, one hand on his backside. He glared at her. You injected me with a tracker. Wait, isn't that what you said you did with Jessica? It's common standard policy to track a wide variety of species. Understudy. He shook his head. The tranquilizer in it, the tranquilizer in it's making me dizzy. Valentina couldn't help smirking at him. Guess that serves you right. He shook his head again and slipped the device into his trench coat pocket. He picked up a set of high-tech handcuffs and some other gear from the table. He reached for what looked like a flashlight, but stumbled against the counter. Valentina reached up and plucked the flashlight from its holder. She lifted his arm and put it around her shoulder to steady him. Sorry I shot you. Are you going to be okay? Thassodar nodded. It was dose for humans. I'll be foggy for a bit, but not long. Then where to, partner? And that's the end of part 7. So, if you've been kind of following the saga, you know kind of where we're at right now. If not, I recommend you going back to understand what's going on. My only critique and comment here is there is a bit of a repetition in the beginning of this section where we talk about the garage, we talk about the color of the room and all that. Either kind of in my understanding of it, I don't need it described to me twice. Um, so either remove it from the beginning or remove it from the end. It's just one of those things where the double shot of information doesn't really add to the story or the steps that we're taking to develop what's going on. Um, as I'm reading Valentina a little bit more, I discuss kind of the age gap that I thought this person might be, kind of early to mid 20s. But the way she talks really sounds more of a teen. I'm really kind of torn as far as where that age gap is or where that age really kind of sets for her. But the development's really coming together. I'm really liking where the trajectory is going. I'm gonna apologize always for my voiceovers and my shoddy interpretation of who these characters are. But I'm reading this exactly the same time you guys are hearing it, so I don't pre-read any of this. I want to read it just like I would if I was reading it in a book. So if you have a story ready and waiting to be read, I want to read it. Send me your unpublished, self published works, novels, short stories, poems to the email address in the description below, and you might be the next featured artist in an upcoming episode of I'll Read That. You are the primary source in helping build a community where writers can support other writers, where writers get a new voice, where readers get a new author that they can fall in love with, and everybody's story has a shot of being heard. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comment, your critiques, your likes, your dislikes. It doesn't cost you anything, and your feedback could really help another writer develop and grow their craft. So again, from the bottom of my heart, everybody out there, please keep writing and remember, I'll read that.